I'd like to ask a question to the audience. What's your most memorable contest and why? Kindly share with us in the chat section. Today, I asked myself a question. What's the difference between a contest and a Toastmasters meeting? And the response that I had for myself was a contest is an experience whereby it's not just speakers delivering speeches, and that's why we remember them. Anyone that would like to share with us their most memorable contest and the reason why you chose that?
I could share. I remember a contest I attended at Kampala Toastmasters, and it was, all the speeches were scintillating, to say the least. I couldn't figure out who the winner was.
Thank you very much, Joy. It's indeed that most of what we remember out of a contest is what we see, but there is much more that goes on behind the curtains. And most cases we see that contest chairs, the judges, the speakers, but we don't see the energy that other people put in. And tonight I want to share with us about the other participants that help us to have stellar contests that people can still remember. I've seen someone share on the chat about the tall tales that the speeches were captivating. Thank you so much. And in that we have three categories of role takers that help us to have a stellar performance, and they include the timers, the sergeant at arms, and the ballot counters. Next slide, please. This year, as the previous speakers have mentioned, we shall have 4 categories of the speeches. We shall have the humorous, the evaluation, table topics, and the international speech contest. And in those contests, we shall have the following role takers, as I mentioned earlier. And all these need to be briefed so that we ensure that members are going to walk away with an experience. Next slide, please. There are communication channels, as indicated by the previous speakers. These are chosen best by the chief judge and the contest chair, based on how they want to communicate with their tag team. The chief judge works with ballot counters and timers. The contest chair works with the sergeant at arms. Next slide. The role of a timer, it's very important because it is true judges vote who the winner is, but timers also have a say in who the winner is, because if a speaker goes overboard time, then that disqualifies the speaker. So it's very important that we have timers at a contest, and we need to have 2 teams of timers. A team A that comprises of 2 speakers, 2 timers, whereby one shares the timing cards. And in an online contest, we shall be using timing cards, just like one on my background. I will demonstrate those at some point later. It's important that you have those cards displayed as your background so that the speakers can recognize where you are and they can pin you. So the first timer on the first team times, all timers time speakers, but it's only one timer that displays the cards. It's important that all the others keep timing and keep changing those cards in the background, that even when the first timer drops off, if it's internet or if they're not able to share the cards, the second timer can turn on their video and the color has already been set. The team Yes, the second team will be on standby just in case the first team is unable to show the cards. Next slide, please. The timing template has been displayed by the previous speaker. I will not explain about that. It's important for timers to fill this template way before the contest. The names and the order of speaking will be shared by the chief judge. And it's important that you fill these templates so that when speakers start speaking, you just fill them when the names are pre-filled. Timing starts as soon as the speaker mentions the first verbal or non-verbal cue. A non-verbal cue can be something like, then you know that a speaker has started on their speech. Disqualifications. In Toastmasters, we have a leeway of 30 seconds. For speakers that are going to be speaking in the other categories, will qualify if they are 30 seconds below the allotted time and 30 seconds above. That's if it's an international speech, 4 minutes, 30 seconds, above 4 minutes and 30 seconds, they qualify, and you disqualify them if they go beyond 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, this leeway of having 30 minutes below doesn't apply on table topics, where a speaker is disqualified if the speech is below 1 minute. There is no signal that is given to overtime, and it is important that when you display these cards, you leave them on throughout the entire speech time, so that there is another white template that I'm yet to share, whereby you keep that on your screen when you are not displaying the cards, and you display the green, the yellow, and the red during the speech time. Once the speaker has gone over time, you stop sharing or displaying these cards. Next slide, please. There is a link that will be shared where you can download those templates. I want to assume that at this point, we all know how to upload a virtual background on Zoom, whereby if it's an online contest, that's the most preferred way of not disrupting speakers and the order of the contest. There's normally a pre-contest session where timers go through the training on how to use these templates. Start the process of sharing the cards at least 5 seconds before the time. This is because also screen sharing takes a little bit of time. That as soon as you share, it also takes a few seconds to display on the screen. So it's important that you use that allowance of 5 seconds as soon as the time is yet to approach. That's, for example, you share the green card at 4 minutes and 55 seconds, so that at exactly 5 minutes, the green card is already displayed. Next slide, please. Yes, this is the screen or the background that you should choose to display when you're not displaying your timing cards, in case there is no speaker speaking, that's to say. So that when a speaker has been called forth, they can easily identify where the timer who is going to be displaying the cards is, and they pin them. Remember, we have 4 timers, so it's important that we identify who will be sharing these cards or the signals. And during the contest, timers can change their roles. We can have the first round of contests in a case where the club or area is running 2 contests. Normally it's 2 contests. If they are running the 2 contests on the same day, we can have one timer display the signals in the first contest, and then switch and have another one display in the second. Next slide, please. Then we have the sergeant at arms. We encourage to have 3 sergeants at arms so that we ensure that members are going to walk away with a seamless experience. In there, we have a lead sergeant at arms who remains in the main room. This one liaises with the contest chair in form of any communication that is needed. We have a second sergeant at arms and a third one who support in various functions, as I will demonstrate or display in the next slide. The sergeants at arms team should establish clear communication channel for their communications, because we have a contest where we send contests like the table topics and evaluation contests where we send some speakers into the breakout rooms. So it's important to have a live communication through the contest. Next slide, please. So in the case where we have 3 sergeant at arms, this is how the roles are distributed. The first one will be the host of the meeting, and they monitor the main room according to the sergeant at arms responsibilities. They also liaise with the contest chair and the chief judge, where they need to send participants in a breakout room and getting them back. The lead sergeant at arms then passes over the communication to either the second sergeant at arms or the third one, based on what needs to be done. Sergeant at arms number 2 remains in the main room and manages contestants or judges that might lose connectivity. This one also admits attendees into the meeting. It's important not to admit participants in a meeting when a speaker is on the stage, because at times that could disrupt the flow of the speaker's speech, in a case where we let someone in a meeting with a mic that is unmuted. The third sergeant at arms monitors contestants in a breakout room and works as the lead sergeant at arms to release contestants into the main room. Next slide, please. During the evaluation contests, that's one where we send the evaluation contestants into a breakout room. Once the test speech is over, the lead sergeant at arms sends the contestants into the breakout room, and we send sergeant at arms number 3. It is important that you give them 5 minutes to compile their notes while monitoring them in the breakout room. And as soon as the 5 minutes are done, you encourage them or you notify them to stop writing, because that's the time that is given to them to compile their notes. And when you receive a cue to send them back to the main room, still you stay in the breakout room to monitor the remaining participants. And it's encouraged to have contestants leave their microphones on or cameras on so that you can monitor their communication so that they don't receive a phone call or something like that. The ballot counters. This is the last part of our team. And the role of a ballot counter is to count ballots, but it doesn't stop there. It starts from receiving these ballots. So ballot counters are supposed to know, if it's a physical meeting, they are supposed to know where the judges are seated, even though the judges are supposed to be anonymous. So the ballot counters are supposed to know where the judges are seated, and they're supposed to collect the ballots. In an online contest, they need to have a live communication channel between the judges so that they can receive the ballots. It's important for the ballot counters to ensure that the judges have correctly filled in their ballots, and where the ballots are not correctly filled in, to communicate back to the respective judges. Next slide, please. It's also important that we have a backup. Normally, Toastmasters allows us to have 2 ballot counters, but in this case, we're saying that it's important for us to have at least 3 ballot counters, even for where you have the resources. Next slide, please. All right, I will proceed without the slides. Once the ballots are received from the, I think we have issues with Joy's connectivity. Once the ballots, allow me share my screen. All right, Joy is back. Once the ballots have been submitted to the lead sergeant at arms, then he shares them with the other sergeant at arms so that they can, the lead ballot counter, he shares them with the other 2 ballot counters so that they count the votes and share the results back to the lead ballot counter. Then this one also shares them back to the chief judge. Next slide, please. That's how the ballot, the judge's ballot looks like. And in our case, we are most interested in the tier of section, where you have to make sure that the judge has put their names, their winner or first place winner, and their 3rd place contestant, and they have to put a signature. Where any of those is not correctly filled in, we consider that valid incomplete. So we need to have complete ballots before we start sending in the results. Next slide, please. So that marks the end of our tag team. In case we have any questions, this is the point where you slide them.
I have a question, Timothy. What happens in an instance where it's not practical to have 2 ballot counters or 2 timers, especially at club level?
Thank you for that question, Joy. At a club level, you could work with at least 2 timers and 2 sergeant at arms, where you can't have the 3, but it's good to always plan ahead to have at least 2 and have a backup. So it requires advanced planning.
Okay,
unless we have any addition from the TLI chair.
No, I'm good. I just posted an evaluation link. That's all I want to flag.
Could I just clarify something, please?
Yes,
Timothy,
please.
Yes, please.
I think you need to put emphasis on the ballots. If people are sending them back to print their name, it says on the form to print the names. Sometimes it's not very legible when they're sending them back.
I request Joy to kindly share that.
Where there's Rodrigue Sema, some of them don't write their names in print. So I think we have to emphasize this section.
Thank you very much for that input. Yes, it's really important to have judges put their names, but in the case where someone is unable to fill this template, I will reckon on the words that June used. printing them and writing manually also is valid. All right, thank you very much. And since we don't have any questions, I will ask us to fill the evaluation form, and back to you, Joy.